Welcome to Healthy Heart. This is Dr. Isaac Opoku-Asare. Thank you for joining me this evening for another wonderful discussion. I believe that your support is helping us to be able to spread this program to other people, which we believe in the long run will make an impact in their life. There's a lot of discussion that goes on around the dinner table in various places about the African American population. And we want to take the opportunity to talk about cardiovascular disease and African Americans or blacks, because there are certain things that are different. And it is important for us to know that, especially if you're African American, so that you take the necessary measures to ensure that at the end of the day, you know the things that you are at risk of, and therefore take the necessary measures to mitigate these risks that are more or less inherent in us as a result of being an African American. And it is better to know, even if you have faith, so that you can put in the appropriate things, especially at the early stage. And this goes not only for the adults, but I believe that some of these changes should be made at the level of youth, in the teenage years, and as you get into your 20s and other things. Make those changes. That will go a very long way to help you. So African American heart disease, or I wouldn't like to say heart disease, cardiovascular, that is heart and blood vessels. Cardiovascular disease and African Americans, I believe, is an exciting topic. So we'll strongly encourage you to call somebody to join us at this time, and I believe that is going to make a big impact in their lives. So as we always start with, we want to talk about the 7 pillars of ideal cardiovascular health. The 7 pillars of ideal cardiovascular health. We just want to remind you so that every day you work on those numbers and do the best you can to improve on those indexes, and they will go a long way to help you. So as we have said over and over again, it is made up of 7 things, but the 3 critical things that you need to know is appropriate dietary pattern, which we're going to lay emphasis on today, physical activity, and weight control. If you can achieve these things and avoid smoking, which is the 4th, then the next 3 may come to you relatively easy in terms of achieving those indexes, which are ensuring that your fasting blood sugar is less than 100, and also ensuring that your cholesterol is appropriate based on your risk profile. So that if you've ever had a heart attack, or if you've ever had a blockage in your heart, and in that situation, then you will benefit from a lower cholesterol, bad cholesterol of less than 70. And another important factor is to get a good cholesterol up. And the last one that we'll talk about is the blood pressure, ideally less than 120/80. And even if you cannot achieve that, less than 130/80 is important. So these are very simple 7 points that you need to keep in focus. And if you do that, I believe that is going to go a very long way to help you. And it's important that these things are our focus more than anything. I had opportunity to talk to a young girl who wants to lose weight. And he said, I've tried and tried and tried and tried. I cannot lose weight. And I said, what have you been trying? I want to know the trying. And she said, okay, I've been exercising more. I said, that is good. That means you've got one good cardiovascular point. So even if your weight is high and you're exercising, you've negated one negative mark. And I said, what else are you doing? He said, I've made changes in my diet. I said, that is also good, right? Because sometimes what people do not understand, I want to repeat this. Sometimes we just focus on one thing, just one thing, okay? And that is the weight. And I've said it over and over. In my experience, people who are not big, when they get heart issues, they are even worse than sometimes people who are what? People who are big. It's all because I believe. That may not be 100%, that may not be the 100% rationale behind that pattern that we see. But I think one of the issues is the fact that sometimes people get deceived based on the fact that, okay, their weight is okay and they think that they are completely healthy. That is not true. So it is important to look at all the factors and make the appropriate decision. So let us go on to our topic. But before we go there, we'll go for a short break about Advanced Cardiovascular Institute and White Oak Cardiovascular Center, which is my practice now. It's an excellent place where we treat patients as family, and I believe that we'll continue to do good work. And anybody that comes to us, we believe that you're going to find that we are patient-centered facility. So we'll go for a short commercial break and then we'll come back.
This is Zoe Light Radio.
Welcome to Advanced Cardiovascular Institute and White Oak Cardiovascular Center. This is a place that you can be assured of evidence-based, patient-centered, and compassionate care. What does it all mean? It means that when you come to Advanced Cardiovascular Institute and White Oak Cardiovascular Center, we do not see you as a patient, but we will see you as a member of our family. Therefore, we treat you the same way we treat our family members. That is why at this place, we have taken measures to make sure that you are being treated with the highest care and, more importantly, with people that are qualified to do what they are supposed to do. If you look at our rooms, you realize that we've made room for any condition, including whether there is a pandemic or not. Additionally, you also see that we have a staff that also cares for you. So as you come here, we don't see you once again just as a patient, but we'll see you as a family.
This is Zoe Light Radio.
Thank you very much for joining me. This is Dr. Isaac Opoku-Asare, Medical Director of Advanced Cardiovascular Institute and White Oak Cardiovascular Center, situated in Maryland, specifically Silver Spring. Today we want to talk about African Americans or blacks and cardiovascular disease. So based on the data that AHA that is American Heart Association, was able to publish this year in January 2021, and that data is generally about 3 years behind. So they needed 3-year studies to be able to, what I say 3 years behind means that they captured the data all the way to like 2018 and then use that data to be able to bring out the publication. Based on that, 60%, I'm repeating this, 60% of all males and 58.8% of all females, blacks, African Americans, have cardiovascular disease. That's pretty high. That means that when you are in a room filled with 10 people who are African Americans, 6 of them have cardiovascular disease. And it could be from hypertension, diabetes, blockage in the heart, or whatever it is. So these are the numbers that we see. So let us talk about this. The reason why I think that we want to celebrate the Black History Month by talking about blacks and heart disease is the fact that in 2016, cardiovascular death was the highest among black people compared to any other race in the United States. And in the era of COVID-19, which seems to disproportionately affect African Americans, our worry is the fact that we may see the similar pattern that we saw in 2020. In similar pattern in 2020 as we saw in 2026. That's the point. Because COVID-19 tends to attack people, it tends to affect in a more severe manner people with cardiovascular disease. And African Americans, 60% of men and 58.8 for women, having a high amount. I mean, having a relatively high percentage of cardiovascular disease sort of become a target where the outcomes of COVID-19 tends to be a little bit worse. So this may explain some of the discrepancies that we see. And in terms of the factors, I want to go to the big ones here that are glaring. So, for instance, let us look at things like blood pressure. When you look at blood pressure, you see that 58% of all African Americans or black people that are more than the age of 20 have high blood pressure. That is defined as blood pressure more than 130/80. That is a pretty high number. It's a pretty high number. And it is more in African Americans more than probably any other race. So this is what says us. These are the things that you know that being African American, there is that higher tendency for that to happen, and it is important for you to take the appropriate measures. I mean, if you're a Christian, if you're a pastor, you pray about it, and then you also do the necessary things that are going to help you, right? Okay, and the other things that you also need to know is obesity. When it comes to obesity, undoubtedly, obesity rates are much higher in African Americans, and if you do a comparison between an African American woman and a white woman, the level of obesity is much higher in African American women than in non-Hispanic whites. So it is these are the big ones. High blood pressure. The other one is also the obesity. Of course, coronary artery disease. The coronary artery disease is pretty much in African Americans almost the same way as it is in other races. The other thing that we also see, and which has been published over and over, is the fact that when an African American have cardiovascular disease, they tend to have a relatively worse outcomes, and it is believed to be due to disparities sometimes in care, access to care, that may be accounting for some of these things that we see, and that is why it is important that if you have access to care, please utilize it. Check yourself and make sure that at the end of the day, these parameters that we talked about, the biggest one, the blood pressure, that is such a big one, right? The weight also is something that you make sure that you look at it and you deal with it at a very early age, so that, or at a very early stage, let me put it that way. And in that case, that's going to help you. It is important to know that diabetes, right? Diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes, has a direct relationship with obesity. And that is why it is important that you keep your weight under control, helping you to be able to reduce the probability of you ending up with diabetes. So there are other factors that we know, which is almost sort of similar in both races. But the big ones that stand out is the high blood pressure, it is the obesity, it is the fact that outcomes, when outcomes are much more worse. And now we know that COVID-19 is also another factor that tends to affect African Americans much more than other races. So let us look at how do we address these issues. It's very important that having known this, it doesn't mean that you are cursed or anything. It is wonderful and it is great to be black. That is what I know. It is great. But it's also important to know some of these factors so that you take measures very early to address them. You know, I've over the last few months, I've seen a lot of African Americans and a lot of African, sort of relatively young African Americans with high blood pressure, and That is why I wanted to use this opportunity to have that discussion. So that right at the beginning, we take measures to ensure. There's a whole lot of theory behind it. There's the salt theory. There's a whole lot of theory. The bottom line is this: get it controlled. Controlling it is much more important than having a discussion. So get it controlled, and that is going to help you. So let us look at, if you have the opportunity, you can look at our diagram that is here about salt. So it is important for all of us to understand that salt intake is a major contributing factor to our blood pressure. And in America, this is what is known. It is recommended that we consume 1,500 of salt. But in America, the average number that people consume of salt, you know the number? The number is 3,400. Actually, it is known that only 4% of Americans really take the 1,500. So it's like we are living in a salt land. It's like we are oversaturated with salt. This is some of these things are coming from the pure trials. And it is important. It is important to know that even the average American take twice the recommended amount of salt. And that is average. That means that there are certain people who are taking 6,000. And there are certain people that are taking what? They're taking probably close to the 1,500. The people who are close to the 1,500, that's what that one I know, is 4%. And that is why it is important that if you already have a genetic predisposition, or if you are racially, as an African American, knowing that you have a risk of high blood pressure, it is critical and important that you deal with salt in a big way. Very, very important that you take almost all the measures. And what are the common sources of that? The common source of bread. The common source, bread, fine. Bread is one of the biggest bread is one of the biggest source of sodium. Why? Because they use the baking soda. What is it? What is it made up of? It's made up of sodium. So that is one of the reasons. But what are the other things? The number one source, I'm repeating this, the number one source of salt is processed food. I'm going to repeat that. And if you look at people who eat outside more and they end up with processed food, they have a high tendency to have They have salt intake very high. As I said, America consumes, the average number is 3,400, but we are supposed to consume 1,500. So processed food is number one. So, and we'll come back to that and then look at it. There are various levels of processed food. We'll give you the opportunity. But you need to look at them. The highest processed food is what you really need to stay away from completely. An unprocessed food, let me give you an example. One unprocessed food is salad, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, they are unprocessed. And those ones have the minimum amount of salt that you need to worry about. More importantly, one of the things that has been shown to reduce blood pressure is the DASH diet. Why is the DASH diet important? The DASH diet is DASH. It's DASH, and that diet is what? It's high in fruits and vegetables. So it makes the potassium amount higher, and it makes the the sodium amount lower. And it is known that that balance of the potassium and sodium in people who do not have kidney problems, that is something that keeps the blood pressure controlled. So if you are African American, it is important that the other people may be eating something that they want to eat, but you have to make the decision that right at the beginning, you are going to make sure that you stay away from high sodium or salt food. And number one is processed what? Processed food. What is the process? The worst of them is processed meat. Processed meat, they contain a lot of salt. Other ones that are there are all the all the things out there in some, they are not serious. I need to, I don't want to say any commercial name, but those processed carbohydrates that are sorted, it comes in various forms, and you know them. I'm intentionally staying away from that. But if you move more towards fruits and vegetables that are fresh, because I can tell you that they are also processed vegetables. Let me put it this way. You know, a lot of people don't know this, that some of the so-called diet food out there, and let me give you another example. Some of the processed vegetarian diet and some of the processed vegan food, the only way that they taste well is because they are loaded with salt. I can challenge you with this. Next time, if you go to any supermarket or shop, go to the section where they have got some of these processed vegetable based food, and see how much salt that they have in them. Very high amount of salt that they have. So don't be deceived. The fact that it's vegetable does not mean that by itself, even if it is processed, is the same, right? Because sometimes some of the canned vegetables that people sell, those canned vegetables, they also contain salt. So the idea is that if you want to cut down your salt, then move towards, I'm repeating this, move towards unprocessed food. Try to get food in its raw form. And if you can get food in its raw form, most food in their raw form contain minimal amounts of salt, and that is going to help you. So processed meat, right? Highly processed snacks. That is the word that I was looking for. Those snacks. These snacks, they contain a lot of salt. There are only two spices that they're the two commonest spices in America. One of them is called sugar. One of them is called salt. So those snacks that you go about, please stay away from them, right? I love avocado, but the best avocado that I go for is a raw avocado. I don't want the other types where they've added so many other things to it, and it makes it salty and it loses its benefit. So that is the first thing that I want to talk about. Appropriate dietary pattern to make sure that if you're African American, you can control, because 60% of all African Americans beyond the age of 20 have high blood pressure. So make a decision to eat the fruits and eat the vegetables, and then cut down the amount of red meat. And if you're going to do the red meat, buy a fresh one, right? Increase the poultry, increase the fish, and that is going to help you. So those are the points. So let us look at other issues in terms of the blood pressure. Another thing that you can also do is also exercise. When you exercise, the exercise can cut down your blood pressure. Generally, the upper one by 7 and the lower one by 4. So only exercising will not get your blood pressure controlled. I'm repeating this. But exercising together with appropriate dietary patterns are going to help you. And that will go a very long way to make a difference in terms of how many blood pressure medications you're going to take. What are you going to take, 5, 6, or 2? So most people may not be able to avoid, I'm repeating this, most people may not be able to avoid not taking blood pressure as an African American, but you can probably do something about the number of blood pressure medications you take. And that is why that is important. I want to share with you, one of the studies that was done was the Lyon. Lyon is a French state. It's a Lyon heart diet study. So when they did the Lyon heart diet study, it's very interesting what they found. And I really want to share that with you because that was a really, really powerful study because it gave us some ideas here. So I've talked about the DASH diet. The DASH diet is low in sodium, high in potassium, high in fruits and vegetables. Okay, so let us talk about another one. The other one that we want to talk about today, that is going to help you to keep the blood pressure down, is also the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet, I've talked about it in the past, but I want to lay emphasis on that because I want to talk about things that are known to reduce cardiovascular outcomes. Even if you're not African American, we can talk about this because the Lyon diet heart study, this was specifically done in people that have got heart problems. And they were supposed to look at them and two groups of people. One group, they were going to eat more legumes, vegetables, fruits, poultry, right? And the other group, they were supposed to eat anything that they want to eat, period. And you could see that the people who were supposed to eat any other thing, they ate more butter, they ate more cream, they ate more margarine. That's what they did. And they followed these people. One group ate the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet is a diet, once again, that is high in fruit, vegetables, less in what? Less in meat, and moderate amounts of nuts, poultry, and fish. That's what they did. And they followed them for some time. You can go and check it. Lyon, that is Lyon. Lyon, any way you want to pronounce it. At the end of the study, listen to me. There was a 50 to 70% reduction. 50 to 70% reduction in three main measures or outcomes that they were looking for. Number one, cardiac death and heart attacks was substantially reduced in the people who are adhering to the Mediterranean diet. Let us talk about the second one. It also reduced recurrent heart attacks, heart failure, and it also reduced hospitalization. Why wouldn't you take this? So the Lyon diet heart study showed us that this is very, very important. And I mean, other people will tell you, okay, don't eat any meat. I mean, I don't go for that. Because the only diet that have been shown, there are many, many diet patterns out there, but the only diet probably that has good data behind it is the Mediterranean diet. Nobody, there is no other diet in the world. So it's not the keto diets and all the diets that people are doing to do damage to themselves. You can't go wrong with the Mediterranean diet. Good amount of olive oil, good amount of nuts, vegetables, fruits, and I'm repeating, the moderate amount of fish and poultry and a low amount of red meat. So that I wanted to share that with you because that is going to help you. And let me just, let's go over this. It's very important that whatever you are eating, I want to share that so that it's going to help us. So we're talking about African Americans and cardiovascular health. So let us talk about the other things. But before I go there, because I want to share with you some other strategy. What is obesity? So obesity is a big problem. As I said, it's much higher in African American population than others. And the obesity also lead you more to diabetes. So let us talk about obesity. And let me share with you some of the principles. I have been able to lose weight and it's been very effective. Very effective. So I want to start with the principle that if you fast, you cannot gain weight. If you are fasting and you're gaining weight, then that means there's something wrong with you, okay? So, so you need to see a doctor quickly. Why am I saying that? It is important because if you understand that principle, then the first thing that you're going to do is the fact that you need to cut down the total amount of food that you eat, period. You cannot continue to eat the same way and add calories to it over and over and over again and expect things to change. It doesn't happen. So if you eat 3 square meals, please eat 2 circle meals. And I can tell you that you can live on 1 meal a day. You can easily live on 1 meal a day. I'm not saying that because I've seen people do it. I myself, I can easily go through a whole month or 2 months, and essentially I get my cup of coffee in the morning and I get my dinner. I'm done. Because when I had the encounter of a guy, let me tell you the story of a guy. There was a chef who had 4 heart attacks. 4. And finally, he decided to stop being a chef. And then he started practicing what we call intermittent diet. Today is not a day for intermittent diet, but I'm going to go slightly towards that. Because if you practice intermittent diet, it will help you to cut down your calorie. So this guy decided that he was going to start intermittent fasting. And the commonest method is the 5-2. So 5 means that you eat all the food you want to eat. 5, you do your normal food. And then on 2 days, you reduce how much you eat by 1,000 calories maximum. And then ultimately you go to 500. And if you're able to achieve the 500 calorie for that particular day, then you increase it from 5, instead of 5-2, you make it 5-3, and ultimately 4-3. That means that 4 days in a day, you take your calorie content is only 500, and 3 days you eat your normal diet. And just by doing that, and technically it's not really fasting because you end up eating, right? Just by doing that, the guy changed the job from a chef to a mountain tourist, and he's never had a heart attack again. In eating less, he became healthier than in eating more. And I can tell you personally, that is what has happened to me. By eating less, I can do more than I used to do when I used to eat more. So this is a testimony to you that you have to control your weight by how much you're eating, period. I can't say more than that. So how do you cut down the calorie? You can practice intermittent fasting. And if you eat 3 square meals, please go to 2. You don't need. Let me tell you this. Lions eat once a day and they sleep for 16 hours or 12 hours and they are okay. I think it's only human beings that eat probably 3 times a day. Most animals, they eat and they are okay. Okay, so somebody will say you are talking about vegetables. Let's talk about vegetables. Let me use the elephant. The elephant, does the elephant eat red meat? It doesn't eat red meat. The elephant eats what? Only greens. But the elephant at the end of the day is big. Why is the elephant big? Because the amount of food that the elephant eats is a lot. So it's not a question of just only eating vegetables. The benefit of the vegetables, it goes beyond weight. But if you want to control your weight, you have to cut it down. Whether you are eating vegetables, whether you're eating carbohydrate, whatever you are eating, bring it down. If you are able to do that, that is going to help you. So I want to finish our session with this principle. Number 1, the calorie content must go down. And I'm giving you a practical example. 3 square meals should go to what? 2 or probably 1.5. And then you move from that stage to intermittent fasting, where some other days you go to a total calorie of about 500. The simplest to do is a 5 and 2, and then you can move on from there. Now let's go to the third principle. I'm talking about weight control, and today I'm talking about calorie management. So the third one is to change your diet from heavy dinner to heavy breakfast. Actually, not eating good breakfast is a problem. So most people, and in certain traditions, we eat good in the evening. Sometimes you can't do anything about it, and you have to. I eat dinner. That's because I don't have time to eat lunch and other times. But I have to eat salad so that my calorie content will not go too high. So that is why it is important for you to be able to do that. So if you are having a problem, please eat well, eat good breakfast. I know there is a doctor out there that is talking about it. He has no data to back what he's saying, but because he's popular, I mean, and that is why he's trying to say that. But the bottom line is this: it is published in Jack and everywhere that good breakfast is a good thing. and eat very little at night, because when you eat at night, you don't take it anywhere. It only ends up at fat in your body, and that is what you need to do. So we talked about cutting changing the number of times you eat. Go, I want to give you practical things. I asked the person, are you still eating 3 square meals? If you are still eating 3 square meals and you don't have diabetes or any other thing, then it's a problem. You're not serious about weight loss. Then 2, you can consider intermittent fasting. Number 3, you need to change your dietary pattern. And number 4, avoid high calorie food. Let me give you an example, and then we'll finish here. Next week, I will come back and we'll look at 6 principles about dietary patterns that are going to help you. And then we'll continue this session on another topic here. But let's listen. I'm talking about nuts. Nuts are very good, and everybody is supposed to consume them. But nuts contain a lot of calorie. So if you go about eating nuts and nuts and nuts and nuts alone in high amount, you are putting a lot of calorie into your system, and that's going to be a problem. In cutting down the salt intake, shifting towards fresh, unprocessed food, and then putting into place calorie restriction measures that we talked about, I believe that will help you to control your blood pressure. That will help you to control your weight and controlling diabetes, and probably help you to also control your cholesterol, further moving you towards better cardiovascular health, which hopefully will translate into greater longevity and a better lifestyle, so that you will be able to enjoy it. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. Next week, we'll be coming to you about the changes that you want to eat. Okay, some people will say, I like high sodium diet. I like high fat diet. I like this. We have realized that whatever you like, we can work with you to modify it, to be able to help you to still enjoy the food you eat. So that we'll call something we're going to talk about, the shift. How do you shift your dietary patterns still while you're still in the same category, to ensure that at the end of the day you're going to enjoy it? So you can ask people to join us. We're going to talk about shifts in diets, and this is going to be so exciting. Thank you once again. Please send in your questions. We need the questions to come in, and then we'll be able to answer. We want to use our first 15 minutes to answer the questions, and then probably the last session to also answer any questions. And hopefully one of these days we'll be able to also post some of these questions also online during the show, so that you'll be able to see these questions that will be received from people. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to God's Rhythm. Tune in every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to learn how to protect your heart. God bless you.